It seems like it always takes some sort of event, whether it be a joyful or sorrowful one, to remind us of how important family is. When we lose a family member, our family seems less complete, and we're reminded of what that person brought to our family and our lives. A couple of years ago, my dad brought me to England. It was almost a sort of homecoming for me and for him. For years I'd seen pictures from my grandma and grandpa's trips there, from my grandma's youth, and heard countless stories about the countryside, the sea, and our family there. Since I graduated and left the small town I grew up in, my dad and I hadn't spent a lot of time together, except for holidays and special occasions. It was such a wonderful opportunity to experience all these great places together, and I knew how much it meant to him to be able to show me those places he'd already experienced. My dad was born in Yorkshire and came over with my grandma on the Queen Mary in 1946. The war was barely over, the ship still painted war green, full of hopeful war brides on their way home to meet their husbands in Canada. You see, like many other English women, my grandma married my grandpa, a Canadian soldier, in England, came over to live with his family, in his case a Ukrainian farm family with a mother who spoke no English. Being able to see and feel and touch and smell the places my grandma grew up in was an amazingly fulfilling experience for me. The moment Dad and I stood on the same cliff behind my grandma's childhood home, looking out to the North Sea, seeing the same thing she did every day as a kid, was a moment I will never forget. There were so many firsts on that trip. My first train ride, my first time seeing the Atlantic, my first time on an overseas flight. What a blessing to be able to share all these things with my dad. I spent time with family I'd never met before, hung out with my ultra-cool cousin Helen, and had a beautiful flat to stay at in Notting Hill. It wasn't too long before I decided London was my second home. I knew I'd be back there again, perhaps even to live there. Yorkshire really had an impact on me as well. The medieval walls around Beverley and York, the church my great-grandfather was a choir boy at, the pub he was a regular at, the lighthouse that led my grandma home at night, the beautiful beaches she learned to swim at, even the house my dad was born in. They all had this collective impact on me that will always be a part of me. This past summer, my grandma passed away. I realized, when preparing to speak at her funeral, just how much an impact she had had on my life. She was the center of our family. She brought us all together countless times. She was so strong. She always held her head high, a proud and proper English woman until the end. Even in her hospital bed, when she began to break down, I told her, through my own tears, that she was the strongest person I'd ever known. Don't stop now. One last time. She fought the tears back, smiled, and said, "Okay, Craig, I will. I promise." That was the last time I saw her. How lucky I was to have traveled to these beautiful places, to be able to share my experiences with her before she died. She was always so proud of her grandchildren, and I know she's still proud, watching over me, protecting me, and guiding me through life. Thanks for the inspiration, Grandma.